In this section, I'll be taking you through an inquiry design model blueprint and going through each step of this IDM model. It demonstrates all four dimensions of the inquiry arc in social studies. The first part of forming the compelling question, applying disciplinary tools, evaluating sources, and then finally communicating and taking informed action. So, the first part of the IDM is composing a compelling question. Well, what are the components of a compelling question? Compelling questions address issues found in and across the academic disciplines that make up social studies. They can reflect the interest of students and the curriculum and or content in which students might have little experience. So they're delving into something that they might not know a whole lot about. An example of a compelling question for US history would be, was the American Revolution revolutionary? These standards in practice are just your the key standard that is found in for the inquiry. An example that goes with this compelling question is TEAK 8.4. It's a history TEAK. The student understands the significant political and economic issues of the revolutionary and constitutional eras. Then you stage the question. So this is an activity or activities that introduces the students to the ideas behind the compelling question in order to generate curiosity in the topic. For example, if you want to get your kids thinking about what is revolutionary, you could ask them, discuss the question of how much change must occur for something to be considered revolutionary. The next part addresses dimension 2. It's applying disciplinary tools and concepts. And usually in this model, it's either 3 or 4 questions. So these are supporting questions that are intended to contribute knowledge and insights to the original compelling question. They focus on descriptions, definitions, and processes, which will assist students in advancing the inquiry. An example of one possible supporting question for the compelling question of the American Revolution would be, what were the political changes that resulted from the American Revolution? So this could be supporting evidence that supports that the revolution was actually revolutionary. Here's an example from an IDM on suffrage in Great Britain. The compelling question for these supporting questions was, were deeds or words more effective in advancing the cause of women's suffrage in Great Britain? The supporting questions for this would be, what deeds were used by the suffragettes in Great Britain to advance their cause? Then what words were used? And then did militancy help or hurt the cause? So the supporting questions to help gather evidence for the compelling question. Formative performance tasks. Again, there's usually about 3 or 4 of these, and these are activities designed to help students practice the skills and acquire the content needed for the summative end task. They are built around the supporting questions and are intended to grow in sophistication across each task. And it also provides teachers with multiple opportunities to evaluate what students know, to keep them in a loop of data to inform their instructional decision making. So an example of a formative task for the American Revolution would be, write a paragraph that compares the political rights of white, Black, and Native American men and women before and after the American Revolution. For the suffrage IDM, one example of a performative task would be, list and describe the 3 methods of protests used by suffragettes in Great Britain. Then we have our featured sources. This is dimension 3 in our inquiry arc. And they each performance task should have 1 to 3 disciplinary sources. So each formative task needs sources to help back them up. These help students build their understandings of the compelling and supporting questions and to practice the work of historians and social scientists. An example for the American Revolution would be Abigail Adams' letter to John Adams. For the suffragettes, it would be suffragettes marching in London in 1912, Emmeline Pankhurst addressing a crowd, photographs of Emmeline Pankhurst being removed. So these things don't always have to be texts. They can be newsreels, they can be pictures, they can be a multitude of different sources. The summative performance task is the end goal. You have your argument. So each inquiry ends with students constructing an argument, a detailed outline, a drawing, an essay, however they want to do it. It addresses the compelling question using specific claims and relevant evidence. An example for a summative performance task for the American Revolution would be